Alright, if you remember a while ago, like I think in my third video, I had said that if that video got 25 likes, then I would make another video explaining about the crazy techniques that I used to use during my self-study. Well, this is that video, and before we get into what I used to do, I do want to kind of say that some of these techniques I've been having since I was a kid. So they could be classified as, kiddish, childish, or embarrassing. But one thing is for sure that if I had left those techniques from a young age, thinking that they're too embarrassing to be incorporated, then I would not even be getting 645 in the NEET exam. So I'm really proud of these techniques and they're like kind of close to my heart. But let's leave all that drama and emotions behind and let's get into the video. The first study technique, which I mainly used for biology, was explaining like I was a teacher. I have literally loved teaching ever since I was a kid. I remember when I was in first standard, there was this teacher who I really admired. Like I would dress up like how she did and I would just like imitate her way of teaching. And that habit of like teaching, explaining concepts even to no one just kind of stuck with me throughout the years. So whenever I had the time to be flexible with my self-study, days, that's when I would incorporate the art of explaining to no one into my studies. Now, see, in 11th, I had accumulated a lot of backlogs. And towards the end, I thought that no matter how less time I have to complete all of those portions, at least whatever chapter I'm doing, I'll give it the right time that I need to do well in it. So I had this chapter of respiration left, and there were just piles of other chapters also to do. But I had told myself that if I needed 5 days to complete this chapter on my own, then I will give it those 5 days. So out of these 5 days, the first 3 days I would use to understand the entire chapter. So I would go line by line and read it paragraph by paragraph. And for this I would actually use my coaching module because it was one level higher than NCRT. So just understanding that completely would make the NCRT much easier for me to understand. So the first 3 days would go just like this, making sure that I understood everything that I was seeing. And then on the fourth day, I would use it as a revision day. So whatever I had learned in the past 3 days would be summarized and revised by me on this fourth day. And lastly, on the fifth day, I would only think in this NEET exam perspective. So I would solve as many questions as I could, and I would read the NCRT again, and whichever point I was lacking on, I would go through it again. So the fifth day was just me solving as many questions as I could. They say that you have only understood a chapter or a concept if you are able to explain it in simpler terms. So that's what I tried to do. After reading a paragraph, I would try and summarize it to myself in a simple manner. And if I was able to do it, it meant that I had got an understanding of it. So then I would move on to the next. Then after completing the entire chapter, I would have a kind of overview of whatever I had done. But the main thing which I used to do was trying to understand it like a teacher. So when you get that kind of perspective as a third person, and when you try and explain it in a simpler manner, then you get that deep understanding. Because if you're like me, the thing is, even if biology is simpler than physics or chemistry, if I did not have that deep understanding, then no matter how easy the question was, I wouldn't have that 100% confidence that I had attempted it right. So even though they say just focus on NCRT, I went one step beyond and used another book, and using that book, I would explain every single line of that. Then after getting a deep understanding of that extra book, then I would read NCRT. But again, I couldn't do this for every single chapter because even though this was my preferred way of studying, there's limited time. So I couldn't use this for all the chapters of biology, and I kind of couldn't do it for chemistry or physics either. And I had to develop other techniques for that. So apart from this habit of acting like I was a teacher and studying, I also had this habit of walking around the house and studying. So you might think that this might be pretty disturbing for my family, but trust me, they're used to it. Because from a young age, I could not stick to one location. It was a commonality for me to walk around the house and study aloud. It was normal for me to be found at all of these random places in our house which literally nobody goes to. Because I'm the kind of person wherein if I don't change my location or if I don't give that physical rush to my body, then I just don't feel like studying. Alongside my mind being active, I need the other parts of my body to also be active. And I don't know, just walking around the house gave me that adrenaline rush, which put me into the zone of studying and gave me that inner drive to study. So alongside acting like I was the teacher, sometimes I would take my whiteboard out to the terrace, and whilst walking around the terrace, I would be the teacher. The next thing that I used to do was create these appealing notes which kind of pulled me towards the zone to study. And I'm not talking about the aesthetic notes or the pretty perfect notes, because trust me, I tried that for a lot of time during 11th, but it was just a nuisance. I had this tab which I got just after 10th, so I was really wanting to use it. So I tried to make these pretty perfect notes and I put as much color as I could. But I think that was one of the main reasons that backlog started increasing for me, because I spent way too much time in trying to make them look good. And I stopped making such kind of notes. But for me, I need the content to be in a way that I want to study it. So it's not that it has to be aesthetic, but it does have to be neat and organized. And I kind of liked writing in tiny handwriting because that would cause the content to look little, even though I had a lot to study. Now, since I've had this habit of taking notes from a really young age, it wasn't really difficult for me to adapt to the 2x speed of the lecture and take notes simultaneously. So I was able to take notes in a legible handwriting in a neat manner and make them look appealing for me, so that after the lecture was done, I could go back and revise whatever I had written. And after revising them, I had another habit of taking notes of these long notes, so taking shorter versions of them. So by doing that, I was triggering my brain again and again what I was supposed to be studying. And when I was writing it down in my own handwriting, it was more, I was able to absorb it faster and in a good manner. So what I've learned is that studying for long hours requires you to be happy with what you're studying. That is, the external appearance of your content has to be in a good manner. So for me, I was able to study for long hours by making my content look nice. So whenever I wrote notes, I would make it a point to write neatly. And another thing which I have begun to do was kind of take short notes at the side of my NCRT. I think everyone kind of does this, but whatever I was writing on my long notes, the important points which I had understood from that, I would put it at the side of my NCRT textbook. And I kind of made it a point to use colorful pens here, even though in my notes I mostly stuck to black ink and blue ink. And because I'm pretty proud of how I used to take notes and I really like how they look, maybe I will create a video about note taking in the future. So let me know down if you would like that. Alright, see you for part 2 next Sunday.